My parents tried to give my inheritance to their favorite daughter, but my grandparents had a surprising twist in store. I am a 28-year-old male from a family with a long history of favoritism. My younger sister, Amy, 25, has always been preferred by my parents, especially my dad, over me. This started in our childhood and only worsened as we grew up. Amy was the golden child. One of my earliest memories is her extravagant birthday party, professional face painters, a bouncy castle, and a petting zoo, when she was 2 and I was 5. That same year, for my birthday, I had a store-bought cake and a small family dinner. This set the tone for years to come. The differences became even more apparent as we got older. Amy always got the newest toys, the best clothes, and the most attention. I remember saving my allowance for months to buy a new bike when I was 10. But when Amy saw it, she threw a tantrum, and instead of teaching her to wait or save, my parents immediately went out and bought her an even better bike. Another area where favoritism showed was at school. Amy's parents attended all her school events, while they usually missed mine. I had the lead role in the school play in 4th grade, and I practiced for weeks, full of excitement. On the night of the play, my parents showed up an hour late, missing my main scene while they were comforting Amy, who complained of a stomachache. She felt fine later, but they had simply lost track of time while playing with her. When it came to academics, nothing I did ever seemed good enough. I joined the math club, got straight A's in middle school, and even won first place in a regional science fair, but my parents hardly noticed these achievements. They threw Amy a celebratory dinner and bought her a new phone as encouragement when she scored a B+ on a test in her weakest subject. High school was particularly hard. Desperate for their approval, I threw myself into everything I could, maintaining a 4.0 GPA, being editor of the school newspaper, and captain of the debate team. Amy barely scraped by with a C average and spent much of her time hanging out with friends. When I was chosen as one of 2 junior-year students from our university to participate in a prestigious summer program at Harvard, I felt honored. My dad grumbled and changed the subject to Amy's upcoming dance performance when I shared the news at dinner. At least my mom remarked, "That's nice," but quickly moved on. My parents couldn't even drive me to the airport the night of my departure for Harvard because they wanted to attend Amy's concert, which was the same day. I had to ask a friend's parents for a ride. The college application process was another agonizing experience. I spent months improving my essays, engaging in extracurricular activities, and preparing for tests. Several elite colleges accepted me, and I received a substantial scholarship to my dream school. When I shared the news with my parents at dinner, their reaction was barely positive. "That's good, but don't let it get to your head," my dad advised. "Colleges aren't everything," he added. "Just remember about us when you're off becoming a big shot," my mom said. Meanwhile, my parents were very understanding when Amy barely passed high school and decided not to attend college. They admired her for knowing herself and defying social expectations, something they never did for me. They even bought her a car as a graduation gift. This persistent favoritism hurt me deeply over my teenage years and early 20s. I struggled with anxiety and depression and began therapy in college. It took years to realize that my parents' actions were not my fault. I learned to build my self-esteem and validate myself instead of seeking approval from my parents. Despite my immediate family's lack of support, I managed to lead a decent life. By the time I graduated from college with honors, I had a good job in finance and even bought my own house at 27. Although my parents weren't proud of my achievements, I was. And here's where the current drama begins. On my dad's side, my grandfather recently passed away, leaving behind a significant estate. He was a successful businessman who started from nothing. In his will, he divided his possessions equally among his grandchildren, me, Amy, and our cousins, as well as his children, Dad and his siblings. My share of the inheritance was substantial, about $500,000. It would have allowed me to invest in my future, pay off my student loans, and maybe even start my own business someday. This unexpected windfall and the opportunities it could provide made me happy. When the will was read, however, my parents clearly became agitated. Later, they pulled me aside and told me they felt it was unfair that I received an equal share. Amy, who lives in our parents' basement and works part-time at a coffee shop, said she needed the money more because she was struggling. Though stunned, I tried to stay calm. I explained that Grandpa made this decision, and they had no say in how he chose to divide the inheritance. They insisted I should act morally and give Amy my fair share. When I refused, they became enraged, guilt-tripping me and calling me ungrateful and selfish. Every incident my dad could remember where he had helped me was brought up. Even though I worked part-time to help with finances, he focused on paying for my medically necessary braces, buying school supplies, the bare minimum, and allowing me to live at home during college, conveniently forgetting about the car they bought for Amy, the many shopping sprees, and the fact they still support her at 25. The matter quickly escalated. As the executor of the will, my dad decided to handle things on his own and claimed he would reinterpret Grandpa's intentions by giving Amy my entire portion. He said Grandpa would have wanted it that way, given our unique situation. I was devastated. Not only was this obviously illegal, but it was also a painful reminder of how little my parents thought of me. I pointed out that Grandpa had always treated all his grandchildren equally and that he was aware of our circumstances. I tried to reason with them, but my mom accused me of speaking ill of the deceased by suggesting that Grandpa would have preferred anything other than what my dad was proposing. I mentioned how Grandpa had always supported my academic and career goals, but my parents dismissed this as a misunderstanding. They said Grandpa wanted to make sure Amy was taken care of and had privately expressed concerns about her future. When I asked why he hadn't simply written the will that way, they had no response. As for Amy, she seemed awkward about the situation but didn't criticize our parents. She simply shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best." When I tried to talk to her alone, it was clear she wouldn't be much help. Feeling misled and hurt, I asked Grandpa's widow, my paternal grandmother, for advice. Upon hearing what was happening, she became furious. She told me that my parents had no authority to alter the will and that this was exactly the opposite of what Grandpa had intended. Grandma sent me some materials clarifying the matter. Apparently, years ago, my parents had asked Grandpa to leave everything to Amy in his will, but Grandpa had firmly refused, saying he believed all his grandchildren should be treated equally. He had even included a clause in his will stating that anyone challenging the equitable distribution would lose their portion. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents. Grandma's revelation about their earlier attempt to influence the will shocked them. My dad tried to defend it, saying they were only looking out for Amy's future, but I could see the guilt on their faces. Grandma acted quickly. She contacted the other executor of the will and an attorney. She also reached out to my dad's siblings, who shared her strong indignation about what he was trying to do. Together, they stopped my dad's scheme and ensured that the will would be carried out as written. Although my parents were unhappy with me, they were forced to back off. They argued that I should have handled this privately instead of involving others and accused me of turning the family against me. My mom cried, saying that I had torn the family apart and deceived them. I told them I never expected anything from them in the first place. My dad even threatened to cut me out of their will entirely if I accepted the inheritance. If I did, they threatened to stop all communication with me. In a particularly cruel remark, my mom said that my acceptance of the money proved that I never truly loved them and was just ready to profit from their passing. The whole situation has caused a rift in the extended family. Some of my cousins support me, understanding the long-standing favoritism and valuing me for standing up for myself, while others believe I should have given in for the sake of family peace, putting family harmony above financial considerations. Despite my dad's siblings being on my side, it has strained their relationships with my parents. As for Amy, she is caught in the middle of all this. She confided in me privately that although she feels bad and didn't ask for this, she isn't ready to challenge our parents. She has been trained her whole life to depend on them and seek their approval, so I don't entirely blame her. Still, part of me wishes she would help me just once. This situation has brought up a lot of past pain and bitterness. I find myself remembering all the times I was overlooked or dismissed in favor of Amy, the birthday parties I missed, the school events my parents didn't attend, the successes that went unacknowledged. This one event seems to have brought to the surface a lifetime of unfairness. Though the entire affair has caused a great divide in the family, I'm standing my ground and accepting the inheritance as Grandpa intended. My parents hardly speak to me now, and family gatherings have become awkward. I missed our monthly family meal last week for the first time ever since I could stand the cold shoulders and accusing glares. Though there is turmoil, a tiny bit of me feels empowered. I'm confronting the unfair treatment by my parents for the first time in my life. I'm declaring my value and refuse to be written off. It's both terrible and freeing at once, though I think I'm in the right here. The family drama is draining me, something I hadn't experienced since college. I have started having anxiety attacks once more to assist handle all this stress. I'm thinking about returning to therapy. Am I the one who should have refused to comply with my parents' expectations and accepted my inheritance? Should I have simply handed Amy the money to maintain peace? Although I'm bored of being the family scapegoat, I also fear losing my family totally. Any guidance or viewpoint would be much valued. Updates since my first post 6 months ago. A lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their support and guidance. It truly kept me strong during trying circumstances. Let me start with the legal aspect of things. Many of you advised, and I did see my own attorney. He verified that I had every right to inherit and that what my dad attempted was, in fact, illegal. He helped me record everything and was ready to act legally should the need arise. Fortunately, things did not transpire as such. Along with my dad's siblings, my grandma and her attorney worked out matters without involving the court. I got my whole fortune, and the will was carried out exactly as intended. Because of his will manipulation attempts, my dad was removed as an executor. This was a somewhat demanding process spanning several weeks. My parents threatened litigation. There were tense meetings and furious phone calls, but ultimately, the law was unambiguous, and they had to back off. Still ongoing though, the family fallout has been noteworthy. At first, my parents doubled down on their viewpoint. They charged me with being avaricious and neglectful of my sister. They also sought to mobilize other family members against me, disseminating allegations that I had somehow coerced Grandpa into giving me money. Luckily, most of the family saw through their trickery. About 1 month following the will's acceptance, there was one really unpleasant occurrence at a family gathering when my parents showed up unannounced. My aunt was hosting and hadn't asked them to come. They started a scene, shouting about how I had taken from Amy and corrupted Grandma against her. My dad became saying I had ruined all these wonderful memories. My mother flung an old photo album squarely at my feet. It was awkward and terrible. It took several relatives to cool things down and persuade my parents to leave. Bless her heart, my grandmother turned out to be my most powerful supporter over all of this. She related tales of how my grandfather had always been proud of my achievements, and how he especially wanted to make sure all his grandchildren had equal chances. She even said Grandpa had maintained a scrapbook of my accomplishments, newspaper clippings of academic honors, copies of my college acceptance letters, and even the program from that university play my parents had been late for. This insight was sad as well as wonderful. Grandma also volunteered to straighten the records with the wider family. She organized a family gathering excluding my parents, laying out the entire history of my parents' partiality, including events I had long forgotten or never heard about. Having someone at last recognize the unfairness I had gone through for years was vindicating, but it also reopened old scars about my sister, Amy. She at last found her voice in all this. She came to me personally and apologized for not sticking up for me earlier. After some soul-searching and several long talks with our grandmother, she said she thought our parents' preference was improper, but she had been too terrified to confront it. We discussed our childhood and how it influenced both of us in great length and emotional intensity. Amy admitted that being the favorite child wasn't as wonderful as it seemed. She never learned how to stand on her own 2 feet and felt great pressure to live up to our parents' expectations. She told tales of times she yearned to accomplish things on her own, but our parents would swoop in and handle everything for her, depriving her of the opportunity to develop and learn from her mistakes. For our relationship, this talk marked a sea change. We began to mend the sibling bond our parents' partiality had broken. Just the two of us have been routinely meeting for coffee to discuss and encourage one another through this family crisis. Declaring that she was going to pay for college with her inheritance astonished everyone. She claimed seeing me stand up for myself motivated her to start managing her own life. Once she decided what she wanted to study, she registered in a nearby community college, first intending to transfer to a 4-year university. Our parents let out startled gasps. They knew, I believe, that their babying had not done Amy any favors. The response of my parents to all this has been diverse and changing. They first attacked both of us angrily. They tried to guilt Amy into quitting college to help the family since they said I turned her against them. They changed strategy when that proved ineffective. After several protracted talks with my grandmother, and seeing Amy's great transformation, my mother began to recognize how damaging their actions had been. She has made some hesitant moves toward reconciliation, even beginning therapy to address her problems. She got in touch to apologize, owning that she had been unfair and requesting a chance to right things. It's a slow process, and while I'm gently hopeful, I'm also keeping strong limits. Sadly, my dad has been less likely to own any mistakes. Still furious, he feels as though he is the victim in all this. He has been chilly toward Amy since she chose to go to college and hardly speaks to me. He has tried a few times to control us, threatening to sell our childhood house should we fail to come to our senses or forgiving us should we realize we were wrong. Although we are both standing strong, it hurts to see him distance both of his children like this. The dynamics among the extended family have changed dramatically. I now live closer to my dad's siblings, who have been quite helpful, and my grandmother. Having heard from my aunts and uncles about handling my dad's challenging conduct over the years, it has lessened my loneliness in this fight. Deeper bonds with some of my cousins who stood by me have also developed. Starting a monthly cousin meal allows us to all catch up free from the drama of the older generations. For myself, I have been making sensible use of my inheritance. Having paid off my college loans, I now feel an amazing degree of financial freedom. Working with a financial advisor, I have assembled a varied investment portfolio. I have also set aside some funds to maybe launch my own company some years forward. Opening a community center with reasonably priced mental health treatments and financial literacy seminars is something I'm investigating. But for me, buying therapy for myself and volunteering to do the same for Amy has been the most significant application of the money. Both of us are learning to set reasonable limits with our parents, and are working on healing from our childhood events. Though it's a long road, I already feel as though I'm developing in knowledge and ability to overcome emotional neglect and long-term partiality. This whole process has brought some surprising good improvements into my life. I now know a great deal about establishing limits and defending myself. Though I know I did the right thing, it hasn't been easy, and there are still difficult days. I feel good about myself for resisting guilt and pressure. Among the most unexpected results has been a change in my work path. Dealing with all this family conflict and undergoing therapy has helped me to see my own passion about supporting people who deal with all this family dysfunction. Doing therapy has helped me to see how driven I am about supporting others who have gone through the same family dynamics. Currently, I'm thinking about returning to school to specialize in adult children of emotionally immature parents and work as a family therapist. I have also been helping youngsters from challenging family homes at a nearby youth facility. Being able to offer the kind of encouragement and support I wish I had had as a youngster is immensely satisfying. I'm even considering creating a scholarship fund for children from the same circumstances using some of my inheritance. My contact with Amy has kept getting better. Once a month, we have a siblings' day when we do something entertaining just the two of us. Our hiking and picnic last month was the most laid-back and connected we've had since we were small children. Without our parents' influence, we are gently reconstructing our connection on our own terms. Regarding my parents, things remain tricky. Our relationship has been trying to be rebuilt by my mom. She has been routinely attending therapy and has even begun to see some of the damage her favoritism brought about. We have had a few one-on-one lunches when we have had some honest, though challenging, talks regarding our past and forward direction. Though it's not flawless, improvement is evident. My dad still objects to change. Though he still says he's done nothing illegal and that Amy and I should be appreciative, he refuses to be in the same room with me. Hence, he missed several family functions. Though it hurts, I am trying to let go of my need to compel him to see things differently or control his reactions. For both Amy and me, Grandma now serves as a rock. She has been sharing additional tales about our grandfather and his pride in us for advocating for ourselves. She always supports justice and understanding. Thus, she has been a fantastic mediator in family problems. The whole process has imparted a lot of lessons about the actual meaning of family. I've come to see that occasionally, the family you select might be more encouraging than the one you were raised in. Along with developing a close-knit circle of friends who have been quite helpful along this journey, I have grown closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins who stood by me. Setting limits and practicing self-care have also become more crucial to me. I'm growing better at saying no to circumstances that compromise my mental health, and I no longer feel bad about giving my personal well-being top priority. I was so preoccupied with trying to achieve my parents' favor that I had always put off investigating new interests and hobbies. To those in the same circumstances, I would wish to advise, don't let someone make you feel bad about getting what is rightly yours, even if it generates controversy. It's reasonable to defend yourself. Though family dynamics might be complex, you are deserving of fair treatment. Remember, it's never too late to begin developing the life you are due. See a therapist if necessary. Surround yourself with encouraging people, and don't hesitate to establish limits. Who you are personally defines your value, not how your family treats you. I want to thank each of you once more for your suggestions and encouragement. It meant more than you would have known during a really trying period. Although the road has not been simple, I am excited about the future and confident in self-assurance I have not experienced in years. Where this new chapter of my life will lead excites me, and I am resolved to stop the pattern of favoritism and build better relationships in my own future family. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.